Hello there, you're welcome to Biology Lectures with Akirili Oladimiji Philip. It's my pleasure to have you with me on today's lecture. So we'll be talking about some questions, like past questions basically. I would advise that you should pause the video if you have to do that, maybe to write things down or probably to rewind things that I've said also, all right? Of course, feel free to contact me if you have questions or comments in the details on the screen. Now, the diagram shows the structures involved in the knee-jerk reflex. When the person is hit at a point P, sorry, that blue thing has covered that. It's referring to this part here. The lower leg suddenly is raised. So it's saying that if the person is hit at this point, actually, this is an experiment that could be done even in the laboratory with something called patella hammer. So let's look at this together. Now, let me say this at this point. Try to answer the questions first before watching what I'm going to say. I'm saying you should pause the video, try and see if you can see what A, B, or C is. So you should do this for other questions. That's pattern. So just try and see. Then after you've tried, then play the video to see if you got it. So A is the sensory neuron. Now, why will I say A is the sensory neuron? Now, I've told some of my students this, that part is the posterior gray horn. Don't worry about what that means. Just know that this back part, or let me put it this way, this part I'm shading out is called gray matter in the spinal cord. So this structure is the spinal cord actually. So the point is, this part and this part is called posterior gray horn. This part and this part is called anterior gray horn. Now hear this part. The posterior gray horn is the part in which the sensory neuron entered through, while the anterior gray horn, that white part, is the part through which the motor neuron came out through. So that means B is the motor neuron. All right. Now, this part was not labeled, but let me just mention it, which is relay neuron. Some book will call it interneuron. It means the same thing. Interneuron or intermediate neuron. Please, I have a very nice handwriting, if you know what I mean. Now, so sensory neuron is otherwise called afferent neuron. Motor neuron is otherwise called efferent neuron. I just felt I should add that. So C, what's C? C is the spinal cord. I think I made mention of that already. Spinal cord. Sorry. Okay. Now, it says here, how is information passed across a synapse? Now, please pay attention. This is just a 1-mark question. So you're meant to condense the point, like find a way to say, so you can say information is passed as an electrical impulse through neurotransmitter. This is the keyword. Through neurotransmitter. Through the neurotransmitter from presynaptic neuron to the postsynaptic neuron. I actually said all of this because I wanted you to have a well understood definition. So the point is, just follow what I'm saying in case you can't see what all I've written very well. Please don't mind my handwriting, please. Now it says, what is the effector in this response? Okay, it's referring to this. Of course, the effector in this response will be the muscle. Now I'm going to explain some few things at this point to be a reminder for some of us. Muscle. Now, muscle isn't the only type of effector we have. We also have something called, we also have glands. Plus, please, you should know that I only made mention of gland as another example of effector. But in this question, the answer is the muscle, which is this one here. Hope you get what I'm trying to say, please. All right. Now, I think I should explain some few things here. Looking at this diagram, let me get this off. The P is the stimulus, because this is a reflex arc. Reflex arc means collection of structures needed to bring about a reflex action. So that's now, so the stimulus is the P, the force introduced. Around here you have the receptor. So the receptor detects, that's the key word, detects the what? The stimulus. All right. Then that stimulus has been detected, is converted to electrical impulse, which is transmitted through sensory neuron, which you know that already, sensory neuron. Then it goes on like that. Then synapse. So this is a synapse between, this is a motor neuron, sorry, this is a relay neuron and the end of the sensory neuron. So that's the synapse there. So the next thing is then in this instance, the coordinator is the spinal cord, which takes the decision, or which knows what to be done and sends information back through the what? The motor neuron. Then that goes on to the muscles, which is the effector. So the effector is the structure that executes the information coming from the coordinator or coming from the motor neuron, as the case may be. Just know that effector is the one that executes or carry out the decision that has been taken by the coordinator, which could be the brain or could be the spinal cord, as it were. I went there because I wanted you to understand that again. All right. It says here, describe the difference between the function of a receptor and the function of an effector. Okay. In your answer, you should give one example of a receptor and one example of an effector. Now, we need to look at how many marks does this attract? Oh, 4 marks. So if it is 4 marks, that means you should find a way to highlight your point into 4 points. Now, you're supposed to describe. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to describe receptor. I'm going to describe the function of a receptor, describe the function of an effector. And afterwards, mention an example of a receptor and an example of an effector. So that's what will give us all the 4 marks. So let me start from here. So you can actually just describe the two, receptor, effector, then example, or you just describe it, give an example, describe it, give an example. So in this instance, I'm going to describe each, give an example like that. So let me start with receptor. So a receptor is a structure that detects stimuli. or that is text stimulus. Let's just use singular stimulus, so to say. You can just stop there. Then second point, you don't have to number it, sorry, like that. Second point, okay, receptors are found on the skin, the eyes, nose, tongue. Now, on this skin alone, you have the touch receptor, which responds to touch. We have pain receptor, which responds to pain. This eye responds to what's it called? Vision, images, and all of that, objects. This is for smell. This is for taste. Now, I made mention of several examples so that you can have a pool of knowledge to draw from if you have to. The next thing we need to talk about here is, you don't have to write this way I wrote it. It's because I'm answering. That's why I had to mention all of this and explain that way. And mind you, on the skin, you have more receptor than just touch and pain. I'll let me mention those two. Now, let's define an effector. So, effector is an organ or structure that executes the information coming from the coordinator bracket CNS. CNS. Please make sure you listen to what I'm saying so you can be able to get the right thing in case you can't see my handwriting. I'll work on that, please. So the next thing is example of an effector is muscle. You are asked to mention one, but I always say this: muscle, CLE. They can also mention glands. Those are the major effector. This one contracts and relaxes to bring about an action. This one secretes maybe enzymes or hormone to execute an action. Hope this is making sense. Then here, this is a 2-mark question. So here it says, what is a synapse? So you can say a synapse is a functional gap between the ends of neuron. Let me explain something at this point before I continue. That's point number 1, because we have to provide 2 points to have 2 marks. Before I continue, this is, let's say this is a neuron that has the cell body, the axon, and it has axon terminal like that. Now, the point is, this is another neuron with its dendrite and cell body, axon terminal, like that. Now, this space is referred to, that whole structure that is called synapse. So, neurons are never joined directly. There's a space between them. So, a synapse is the gap between the ends of neurons. If you say just between neurons, you are not specific. It has to be the ends, really, between the... So, basically, of course, this is a rough sketch. It has dendrites like that, then dendron. If I've thought it before, you know, there's dendrites, then dendron, then the cell body, then, so it means the space, I mean, the connection between the 2 ends of the neuron, or the, not a reconnection, the gap, really. Now, the next we need to talk about is electrical impulse. Electrical impulses is transferred through neurotransmitter at the synapse. So we've defined what it is, then we explain more. There are more points. You can decide to say at synapse, drugs can work to either block the neurotransmitter, but preferably it's good you make mention of the 2 points. Now we've defined what it looks like structurally. Excuse me. Then we've talked about the function, the chemical secreted there that makes it to carry out its function, basically. Excuse me. Describe how information is passed, or how information passes across the synapse. Well, this is more like a repetition in a way, but I think I'm going to go and say, when an electrical impulse arrives at a presynaptic neuron, okay, it secretes, let me use your secret, it releases neurotransmitter into the vesicle. No, from the vesicle, please. Not into this. It's meant to be from the vesicle into the synaptic cleft. Okay. The neurotransmitter then stimulates the receptor on the postsynaptic, one word, it's meant to be one word, please, postsynaptic neuron. That's it. I'm really sorry. My writing is quite very wobbly this evening, so I'm just trying to hurry up. All right. Now the point is, let me explain something quickly. Now, this is the presynaptic neuron. This is the postsynaptic neuron. This space is the synapse. When I say pre means before, so post is after. So what happens is this guy will secrete vesicles into the space to diffuse out. Then it will then stimulate this membrane. So the electrical impulse coming from this presynaptic neuron is going to get absorbed into that vesicle, and that vesicle will carry electrical charges with it. Then it will stimulate the next neuron like that. It's that simple. All right, that will be all for now. I'm going